Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and a very good afternoon. Today, we are having another session of our Forum on the Go with none other than our learned professor from, he's adjunct professor of Georgetown University, as well as a Middle East expert, Dr. Adel Abdel Ghafar. Welcome, Dr. Adel, to this program. We are going to have a very good discussion on the latest developments in that part of the world, West Asia, Middle East in general. I think with what's happening at the moment and the situation being still boiling, sort of, because nothing seems settled at the moment, especially after the war on Iran, which took place on the 28th of February this year. And there seems to be no solution to the crisis. And this has not just affected, let's say Iran and Israel and America, but also has affected the Persian Gulf states, particularly. Now, I would like to draw your attention to what's happening on the Persian Gulf states, particularly to the United Arab Emirates, UAE, which I recently exited the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, uh, uh, with no, clear explanation, just that, of course, a lot of analysts have been highlighting that the UAE was feeling that this was the right moment for it to quit that organization, the bloc, and it didn't want to be under the dominance of another Arab state, and so on and so forth. Can you let us know what do you think of the situation? I mean, why did UAE take such a measure, and has this got any significance in the context of relations between the other Gulf states as well as with the big brother, of course, Saudi Arabia?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you virtually, having visited your esteemed offices in person.
Thank you.
Great to have this discussion virtually here and join our friends in Malaysia. So I think it's a great question, and I think a good starting point for it. I don't think the OPEC decision is the starting point. It's the culmination of the rivalry, I would say, that has been ongoing now for a few years quietly between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. At the core of it are some political differences regionally and internationally, as well as economic competition. So I think maybe the good start is to the story is the economic competition component. What the UAE has achieved over the last decades has been quite remarkable in terms of transformation of its economy, the various ecosystem and businesses that have been launched in the UAE, Dubai, and elsewhere, and really putting the UAE on the map as a country that is trying to really punch above its weight as a middle power. And in that instance, over the past couple of decades as well, lots of foreign direct investment have been coming into the UAE, into the various sectors, and help propel this economic miracle. Of course, economic miracle has had its ups and downs over the years, but it's definitely been a strong growth story in the Gulf. Now enter here Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, since he assumed the position of Crown Prince, and the very ambitious Saudi Vision 2030. And I think a big element of the Saudi Vision 2030 is the Saudis looked to their neighbors and said, hey, why? They've achieved all of this growth, but actually we're in a better position to achieve even more growth and more investments and so on. So over the last couple of years, a bit of an economic rivalry started to manifest itself in various ways. One clear way is how the Saudis were offering incentives for multinational corporations to move their headquarters from Dubai to Riyadh and elsewhere, and actually forcing some companies to choose between keeping their headquarters in the UAE or moving to Saudi and getting Saudi business or not getting Saudi business. So it's been a tough call for many multinationals around the world. The Saudis have been also working very hard to make the country a bit more liberal, more livable, and to attract talent from across the region. And that, in that instance, they have been very successful, especially over the last 3 to 4 years, when lots of talent has migrated towards Saudi Arabia. So there's definitely an element of economic competition at the heart of this.
So you're saying it is basically it's economic. It's the fierce competition now between these two.
No,
Saudi Arabia.
I think it's economic and political. So we've covered a bit of the economic bucket. I think we can move to the political, which is even more competitive, I would say.
I see.
The GCC at its core was formed, of course, as a result of the Iranian Revolution and as a security organization, but has always Saudi Arabia has played an oversized role in the organization as the biggest country, biggest landmass, and biggest population. And the GCC worked over the years with the Saudi big brother or big sister. But I think over the last 2 decades, I think the UAE has been seeing itself to become more ambitious and try to move beyond from this sort of big brother, little brother type of relationship. And over the last couple of years, we've been seeing some differences in a number of the files. We've seen some differences, for example, in Yemen. We've seen some differences in Sudan, definitely when both sides compete different sides. And we've seen differences currently in the current conflict as well in terms of the approach as well. And we've seen each of these capitals, like whether it's Riyadh or Abu Dhabi, pursue its own relations internationally, working with the US, Europe, as well as Asian partners and so on. And we've seen the UAE really becoming a bit more independent. If you look at the Gulf countries, you have Oman, which has always pursued its independent foreign policy. You have Qatar as well, which has pursued its independent foreign policy for a small state. We have also Bahrain and Kuwait, who are a bit more aligned with the Saudis. And out of all of the states, UAE is a bit more independent and is trying to really punch above its weight. And that's why I think this is the culmination of this political competition that has been bubbling in the background, this economic competition, and of course the current conflict that has happened right now that pushed the UAE to decide that it needs to be independent of OPEC. By the way, so the UAE is not the first GCC state to leave OPEC. So the first GCC state was, I think it was Qatar a few years ago, not a big petroleum producer, but a producer nonetheless. And I think from a Qatari perspective, they also wanted to be able to operate beyond the OPEC quotas as well, to have a bit more independence. So I think in the current instance, the UAE has calculated that it's better off leaving OPEC and being able to put some of its excess supply onto the global markets and be able to export from the port of Fujairah and bypass the Straits of Hormuz. So I think in this instance, it's never, the adage, never let a good crisis go to waste. I think the Emiratis saw the opportunity and took it and have been thinking about this for a while, but thought this was the best time to leave OPEC.
Yep. So, but we find that all these countries, whichever Arab country it is, they are all very all backed by the Western powers, especially the United States. So they can. How does this work out in terms of their relationship with the US? Because both are very strong partners of the US, the UAE as well as Saudi Arabia. So how far will this rivalry go, or would the US allow this rivalry to go without jeopardizing its own interests in the region?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great question. I think when it comes to relations with the US, both capitals have pursued their own interests. When Trump visited the Gulf last year to much fanfare, huge
Yeah.
deals were signed, and so on. So I think not just the both countries, but across the GCC, the GCC has been able to really deal with the Trump administration because it offered incentives to the Americans as a country, but offered also incentives to the Trump family as well via various businesses. So I think each country has pursued its interests vis-a-vis Washington as the main security guarantor. But I think also from an American perspective, they do not want to see infighting between their two major, some of their major allies, especially in the Gulf. So I don't think this rivalry will escalate too much because ultimately both countries have a common denominator of regional stability and order when it comes to the security of the Gulf and the Middle East. So I think we're going to see more of these divergences, but I don't think it's going to erupt to, like, for example, like a blockade that has happened with Qatar in 2017, because I think these countries are too big and they have the common denominator, as I said, of regional stability and not having things escalate. But I do think what's happening over the coming period, that both have a different vision of regional security architecture, and maybe they agree that Iran is a big threat, but maybe they disagree, for example, on the position towards Israel and other regional actors as well. And that's why we've seen a bit of a divergence during this conflict in terms of the statements coming out of the foreign ministries and other from both sides. And I think we'll continue to see that as well.
So quite interesting that these developments, particularly when you say that Israel, even in the context of Israel, the UAE is very close to Israel, but not the Saudis. The Saudis are very cautious about their relationship with Israel. So these kind of things. But when you mention about Iran, okay, now with, of course, the war that has been imposed on Iran, which is still ongoing, but like it looks like a stalemate at the moment. And recently, the latest proposal by Iran was also, Trump seems to be dissatisfied. I do not think he has rejected it outright, but he seems not happy with the proposals given by Iran. So given the situation that now it's everything is in a state of flux, can you explain what will happen after this? I mean, if let's say the situation comes down, a proper ceasefire takes place and things come down, what would be the relations between Iran and the Persian Gulf states?
Yeah, so again, this is the billion-dollar question,
Yeah.
I think maybe a good starting point to answer it is the Americans made a number of miscalculations coming into this war. First of
Yeah.
all, they thought there's going to be a decapitation strike on
A quick one,
the
yeah.
government, like Venezuela, and things will move quickly. That proved to be incorrect. They thought as well that proposing the Shah in waiting, that the people are going to rally. But the opposite has happened. Actually, the people have rallied around the government, and they were betting on some sort of regime fracture where different sides pursue competing interests. But what has happened is the regime, as in effect, has consolidated. And if they wanted to deal with somebody more hardline, now they're less hardline. Now they're dealing with more hardline insurgents. So I think coming into the conflict, the US did not have clear objectives, and these objectives have shifted over time. And now it's on the Straits of Hormuz, opening the Straits of Hormuz. But already the Straits of Hormuz were open before the conflict as well. I think from an Iranian perspective, they're not really going to be able to fight off a superpower, but by the mere action of surviving and continuing to survive this conflict, they are in effect, in a way, winning because they cannot get into direct confrontation with the Americans. But they also cannot remain in this limbo for forever. So I think that is the context why they presented their proposal, and they were in Pakistan, and discussions happened in Pakistan. I think the discussions in Pakistan and the proposal from Pakistan has been able to bridge some of these gaps. But I think right now, this gap remains, and it's very difficult to bridge when it comes to who controls the Straits of Hormuz, when it comes to the guarantees that the Iranians are asking not to be attacked again, when it comes to rebuilding Iran and for the damage that has happened, but also when it comes to the relationship with the Gulf neighbors, which has really taken a big hit. The proximity of the Gulf nations to Iran, is quite close. So I think all of this has been completely put under question. So what I think is going to happen, I will give you three scenarios. I mean, one of them is the optimistic scenario, that a deal will happen quickly. And then the least optimistic scenario is that a deal won't happen quickly and the Americans need a circuit breaker and may attack Iran again. Let's not forget, Dr. Amir, that this is actually the largest deployment of US troops since the Gulf War and even beyond. The multiple carriers, Navy capacity, resupplying of allies as well. So the amount of forces is pretty big, and President Trump may be getting advice that he needs to do the circuit breaker and attack Iran, but this will also come with its own issues. The second scenario, which is what we're in right now, is a sort of extended detente conflict light. Both sides are trying to see who's going to blink first, but do not want to have a major escalation. And in that regard, as things progress, I think this kind of favors Iran, but not too long, because I don't think Iran can hold on too long without being able to export its own energy as well. But we may see this low-level conflict over the summer months sort of bubble around. We have to keep, and I will end with this, in mind two important dates: the elections in Israel in October, and the midterm elections in the US in November, I think a week later. So I think from an Israeli perspective, Prime Minister Netanyahu is facing strong opposition. His numbers are down. He wants to have some sort of big win to show his electorate. And in that regard, that's why the Israelis have separated the Lebanon conflict from the conflict with Iran and are pursuing their attacks on Lebanon. And from an American perspective, from President Trump, his poll numbers are not great as well. Republicans may get a bit of a wipeout. So I think it's not just the conflict, but it's the political calculus that is happening in Washington, D.C. and Tel Aviv.
Yes. When you bring in the other powers involved in this conflict, especially Israel, and the fact that there's going to be elections, and sometimes war, something is done for the sake of winning at elections, which is what Netanyahu has been doing all this while. So the situation in Lebanon is very grave, of course, at the moment, and how do you look at the link between the conflict, I mean the war or the attack on Lebanon, with what's happening over this side in Iran and with the US? But I think, don't you think that behind all this is, of course, Israel is doing the whole thing, because the mere survival of Israel depends on war, conflict. Something must keep on coming up so that it has a chance to, or rather a reason for its existence. That it's been constantly under threat. So it has to fight back. It's in self-defense and things like that. So there's not going to be any peace in that region, West Asia, Middle East, for as long as Israel is what it is, as it is. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think at the core of it, I think is really Prime Minister Netanyahu. not the state of Israel. I'm from Egypt, and Egypt and Israel have had a peace treaty in 1979, the peace treaty with Jordan and elsewhere. I think the issue and the problem really lies with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He is the one that needs perpetual war to continue winning elections and to stay in power, because if he comes out of power, he is legally liable for multiple corruption cases and so on. So I think the perpetual war positioning is really related to Prime Minister Netanyahu. And if you look at some of the Israeli polling, I mean, right now, because the conflict is on, so obviously people want the war with Iran. But I think the Israeli population, if you poll them, there's different opinions when it comes from the right wing settlers who want to take over Gaza and so on, to the center left as well. And each of these segments of society would have a different opinion, I would say, on relations with neighbors as well. So I would think put really the blame on Prime Minister Netanyahu and his really extreme right-wing cabinet right now that is really aiming to get maximalist demands in regionally right next to Gaza and Lebanon, and have pursued this horrible destruction of Lebanon and have taken this position as well. From an Iranian perspective, the Iranians have tried to bring in Lebanon as part of the equation in the deal. And in the first discussion in Pakistan, it was, and they continue to say that Lebanon is part of the agreement or the ceasefire. But the Israelis are not heeding to that component. But so far, President Trump has been able to keep Prime Minister Netanyahu at bay when it comes to attacking Iran. But as I said, the likelihood of escalation is not really completely removed. And I think the Americans may pursue the circuit breaker attacks. And if they do, definitely the Israelis will be a component of it as well.
Okay, our last issue would be still coming back to Palestine, Gaza. It looks like Gaza has been forgotten more or less once the focus has shifted to the Iran and American conflict now. So, but the situation in Gaza is still dire. It is still very bad, and in name there is a ceasefire, but there's actually the ceasefire is just, it looks like a joke, and every day there are Palestinians being killed. So what's going to be the future of Gaza under the present circumstances? I mean, there's the peace board, the board of peace, and it doesn't seem to be working. Or is it really functioning, or what's happening really?
Well, yeah. If you recall, the Board of Peace was launched, and then a short time later, the war on Iran started. So I don't think it was a very
Yes.
peaceful board to start with. And it
Yeah.
had lots of ambiguities, especially towards who's going to govern Gaza in the short term and in the long term. There is a technocratic committee tasked with the governance of Gaza, and there is a plan that is very slowly progressing, but it's not clear in the long term what is the plan for Gaza, because I think many in Israel, especially on the far right, want to go back and resettle Gaza, and if they are left to their own devices, will be able to push the Gazans out into the Sinai, for example. That's been a long-term ambition. So I think the situation on the ground is not good. But at least we're not in the open conflict we had a few months ago as well. So Gaza is a humanitarian disaster. Thousands of dead men, women, and children. Highest casualties in the children bracket. More than half of the casualties are under the age of 12, I think. Destruction of infrastructure, schools, hospitals, roads, and everything. So it's a bad situation, and unfortunately, the attention of the world has shifted away from Gaza to the war on Iran, and that's why I think the Israelis are taking this opportunity to pursue their aims there as well. Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. So it looks like as what has happened previously in Iraq, when the war was imposed on Iraq by America in the Gulf War, which we know. After the war, even so-called the cessation of hostilities, the turmoil and the destruction and things like that, the instability continued for more than a decade. So I think, do you think that Gaza will be something like, wasteland, continuous suffering and things like this for quite some time to come before? But why aren't the Arab leaders doing something about it to resolve this issue?
Well, one thing the current war with Iran has shown is that the Arab League continues to be quite an ineffective organization, and all of the Arab countries have pursued their individual interests. They did come together, however, and contribute to the Trump plan and to the de-escalation. There's been lots of Arab type diplomacy, especially from Jordan, Egypt, Qatar, and elsewhere. And that also led to this Board of Peace sort of initiative. So I think Gaza will continue to bubble in the background, but right now, as I mentioned, the conflict, the attention has shifted towards Iran, and perhaps if the Iran issue is resolved, then rightfully so, the focus should come back to Gaza and the reconstruction of Gaza, and pursuing this technocratic plan that is supposed to unfold on the ground. And I will say also one more thing: it also needs to have two sides to sort of come to the table. The Palestinians as well have lots of internal political differences and issues. So I think the Palestinian house has to come in order as well and present a unified front, especially when it comes to Gaza and the West Bank.
So thank you very much, Dr. Adel, for your insightful, very concise and very interesting analysis on the developments that have been taken place, and what you foresee in the near future for that region. So we just hope that something good will come out of this. I mean, especially the war will stop against Iran, and that stability will come back, and at least some kind of peace can be, because perpetual conflict is especially when it is affecting the whole world, when we face high energy prices and things like that, you see. So thank you very much once again, and that was Dr. Adel. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.